Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Welcome to
Welcome to
SoulSpace podcast. Whoa, if I can talk. We're on number 50 this week. Yay.
Yay!
Cool. Yeah. Almost our celebration of 1 year.
Yes, that'll be fun. That's going to be a good day. If you come any day, come that day.
Yeah. Yeah. That'll be great. So today we're going to talk about communication, um, physically and metaphysically, what your body tells people and what your face tells people, and well, the words that come out of your mouth. So, sometimes communication is a hard thing to figure out.
Oh,
And
yeah,
once you figure that out, things go a lot easier in your life, right?
absolutely. Absolutely. Communication is one of my favorite subjects. Um, as a trained therapist, for me, learning communication and how to communicate with people in a way that makes sense for both parties, make sure everybody understands, and also conveys what you want to convey to another person was a huge part of my learning. And I know that it's helped me in all ways of my life, whether you're just wanting to improve your relationships or whether you're wanting to get into more business or whatever, it doesn't matter. Communication is such a huge thing. No matter what you're doing, your whole life is communicating with others. And so it's really important to begin to master some of that. So we're going to talk about um, some ways for effective communication, stuff about nonverbal communication. And we're just going to dive deep into some of the things that we've learned and that we know to help you along your way. So,
Right. Yeah, and some people, I think I used to think, well, what do I need to learn about that for? People communicate, that's just natural. But when you do learn about it and maybe read a book on it or whatever, it you learn a lot of things that you don't automatically know. You know, it's a lot, there's a lot to it, not just throw yourself out there and think you're going to communicate everything. Uh, And, we can both testify to being shy growing up and not communicating so much, and people thinking that we weren't really who we are. I know I had a comment one time at a class reunion that, oh, I thought you were kind of stuck up in school, but I didn't know that you were just shy and didn't dare talk, and I think you got some of those same kind of comments.
yeah, I apparently a blank face to people on me reads as condescending, which is hilarious because it's the exact opposite of who I am. And so it was like, oh my God, what do I do about that? And so we're going to share some of the ways that you can help yourself if you're having any similar experiences, have ever had a similar experience, or you just want to learn about, you don't know what you don't know.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and you don't know a lot of it, until you learn it or figure that out for yourself. Sometimes you got to figure it out the hard way, but hopefully it doesn't take you 60 years to figure that out.
The hard way isn't as fun as learning it from us. So
Right. Right.
let's go.
Yeah, let's dive in. So, some of the things about speaking, like speaking clearly, speaking your points, getting your point across, and saying what you mean, and asking people, did you understand what I was trying to get across? um, is a huge thing too, because people assume things always, and I know that's one thing. I try not to assume things just by talking to people, and so I try to ask for clarity if I don't understand or if I think I might be getting it wrong, what people are talking about. So
Yeah,
that's
I think one of the most powerful things for me in communication is to make sure that you check for understanding, because people may have heard something different than what you thought or what you intended to say, and
yeah.
that can be a huge cause a misunderstanding and can actually be something that perpetuates or causes, any negativity in the relationship that you're building with that person. And so it's good to say, this is what I heard you say. Would you say that's accurate? And then
Mhm.
you can go from there. And then the other way to go and say, um, what did you hear me say? I just want to make sure, we're on the same page,
Yeah.
because that's a huge thing, is being on the same page and understanding each other. And so it's a
Mm.
positive thing to check for understanding, not just assume that they understood everything that you just said to them, because once they misunderstand you, that misunderstanding will perpetuate as you go. So it's just really good to make sure that you understand each other clearly. Um, and that kind of brings up another aspect is that you just barely touched on at the beginning here, Tracy, too, is being clear in what you're saying.
Yeah.
Making sure that you're not insinuating things or something, because if you're insinuating and not just clearly stating what you mean,
Yeah.
that causes a lot of misunderstanding and confusion on the other person's part. They're like, well, it sounds like this, but do they mean that? And a lot of times people are afraid to ask for
Right.
that clarity. And so you want to make sure that you're saying what you mean, be straightforward,
Yeah.
but also remember tact and kindness. So that's kind of really like key to being straightforward, is remember thinking of maybe what you're going to say before you say it. So it's tactful and it's kind, but it's also very straightforward. This is what I mean.
Yeah.
This is what I want you to know.
Yeah, exactly. I know something that I do when I'm teaching a class or anything like that. I always tell my people in the class that, there are no dumb questions. There are no stupid questions. So don't be afraid to ask if you aren't understanding something or if you need more clarity than I'm giving you, when I'm teaching something. Always ask questions
Yes, of course.
because it's important, and the person teaching you or talking to you needs to know that they want to be asked questions, so don't be afraid to do that. It's always good because someone else will learn from that question too if you're in a
Yes,
group or in a class. Yeah.
absolutely. I think questions are highly underrated,
Yeah.
because if you're not clear on something, you miss something, you don't understand something, or you're like, I think this is what they're saying, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
You want to be clear on that, because that could be something that's really important, whether it's in a class, whether it's in a business meeting, whether it's just talking with a friend of yours. If you don't ask the questions, you're not going to know the answer.
Right. Yeah.
And then where will you be?
And you
You're,
can assume things that probably aren't true, you know?
yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's confusing, and you don't want to be confused, because if you leave a conversation confused or somebody else leaves a conversation confused, well, that probably wasn't the intention of the conversation. And so it's better to have understood and asked the question than to.
For sure. Um, Another point is to be an active listener when you're having a conversation or even with a teacher or with somebody that's presenting something or you're at a talk about something, always be an active listener and don't, if you are taking notes or something like that, don't just always be looking at your notebook writing things down. You're learning, you learn at different doing different things. So taking notes is part of it, but you still need to be an active listener and being, look at the person in the face that you're talking to or that you're listening to and be engaged in that, be present in that. And you're going to get a lot more out of the conversation if you are having eye contact with them and looking at them and seeing their gestures because there's a lot of nonverbal communication that goes on in a conversation too, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But um, first of all, you really do need to be an engaged listener.
Absolutely. I think, one of the keys to active communication really is the listening piece of it. Because if you're just sitting there waiting for your turn to talk,
Right.
rather than actively listening and participating in the other person's part of the conversation, people feel that. and then it makes them less interested in talking to you.
Yeah.
But if you're engaged and you're listening and you're nodding and you're like, yeah, and you're asking questions and you're wanting to know more,
Mhm.
then people are more interested in talking to you. It's about you're giving that person the space to talk in their half of the conversation. And then you have your half of the conversation. So you're equal parts in that conversation. And that's also super important as well. It's not all about you. Even if you feel inside it's all about you, conveying that to another person makes them think, well, they don't care about anything I've literally just said. So why would I even be in this conversation? And
Yeah.
that is a big issue if you're wanting to build a relationship
Mhm.
with this person or this group of people, making sure that you're having that two parts of the conversation. It's not just you talking.
Yeah.
Listening
So
is so
true.
important.
Yeah. Yeah, and we have all had those experiences where somebody hijacks a conversation and they don't ever, they don't want to hear your side of the story or your part in it. They don't let you participate in the conversation. Well, then that's not a conversation. They're they are in their ego or whatever it is, and they don't let anyone else contribute to that. So, everybody has that one person at work that does that, or that one person in a class or whatever, it's all about them. And and if that's you, a lot of sometimes that happens and you have to just step back and take a breath and, oh yeah, I'm in the middle of, just getting in my ego, or I'm in, contributing too much. I need to hear the other people's story too. And realize if, try to catch yourself when you do that. And sometimes it's hard if you're excited about something, or, you have a story to tell. It's important to hear the other person's story too. So be able to back off and be an active listener for part of that conversation too.
Right. So you can have both. You
Right.
can have your time, and it's more easy for you to get your time if you allow other people their time as well, because you're giving them that time and they're giving you your time, so it's a give and take. And the more give and take in there is in a conversation, the more give and take there will be in that relationship, and the more people will feel invested in it, rather than just like, well, they just wanted to get out what they had to say, they don't care about me. And
Right.
that's not really what you're wanting when you're building rapport with someone.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So good to be on both sides of the fence sometimes, and be active, and active speaker and an active listener. So yeah. So good. Um Another thing is the nonverbal communication.
Hmm.
And that is really important. If people are leaning into your conversation, then they're interested in what you have to say and they're engaging in that. If, and remember that when you are speaking about something, to be, leaning in and be have your whole being into that conversation, not just, I'm saying what I'm going to say and then sit back and do nothing, don't be engaged. Right.
Right. Because here's the thing, if I'm doing this and I'm interested and I'm leaning forward, you
Yeah.
know that I'm enjoying it or I'm listening, even if I'm listening to her, if I'm talking. Either way, listening to you talking. If I'm this way, you can tell that I'm engaged. Well, if I do this,
Yeah. Yeah.
what does that say?
Right.
Right. So, like seeing the difference between this and I'm interested. Oh, what are you talking about? Or this.
Yeah.
What
And
does that
that,
tell you?
right. And that
Right. You
kind
need
of
to really
is,
be aware of your body.
yeah, that kind of is a condescending look to people sometimes. If you're standing with your arms crossed, or sitting with your arms crossed. And sometimes it's just a comfortable position, but still be engaged. If you are getting comfortable, make make it known that you are interested in the conversation, um and you're not putting off check in with yourself, like we always talk about. Check in with your emotions and what vibe you're giving off to people, because that makes a huge difference in the way a conversation will transpire and move from one section to the other. If you're starting to back away or not pay attention and not be engaged in the conversation, that's telling people that you're not interested in your and you can do that if you want to escape from a conversation,
That's
but
your intention, I suppose.
right, but that's not a very nice way to be either. We don't want to put that vibe out there that we don't care about others, and unless you really don't, but not that's not what we're striving for here. We want to be engaged, and a lot of people are having trouble with that kind of thing right now because we were not engaged for so long there in our society. We weren't communicating as much. And yeah, we might have been communicating on screen like we are today, but we weren't having that personal communication with people. And we got out of habits that were good, being in community and being together with people. And a lot of people are having a hard time getting back into that and getting back into communicating person to person again, in person. And it is hard to um, get back into that when we were stuck on our own for so long there for a couple of years. you
Right.
know
It
and
can be a challenge.
yeah, and we're
Yeah.
still trying to get back to where we were before in community and being an in-person communicator again. Yeah.
Right. So um I have some particular tips that work really well for people when it comes to nonverbals,
Awesome.
that can be huge. So if you're wanting to convey, positivity and interest, and you're wanting to build rapport with the person you're talking to, whether you know them well or not, doesn't really matter. This
Yeah.
works with everybody. Um, One of the big ones is matching eye contact. So watching how people are making eye contact with you, how often they're looking up and down, whether they're looking away and stuff, matching
Mm.
how they're looking at you, looking into their eyes, but then also when they're looking away, that really helps people to feel comfortable with you because you're matching their eye contact comfort level. That's not
Right.
something a lot of people think about, but like if you're staring somebody down and they don't like that, well, they're going to get uncomfortable really fast. But you
Right.
you might be wanting to convey, I'm paying attention, I'm making eye contact. Well, match their eye contact and watch what they're doing, do what they do. That'll help you a lot, which also brings to another piece called mirroring. So mirroring is when you not only mirror eye contact, but you also mirror what the other person is doing with their body.
Mm.
So like Tracy just touched her glasses. So maybe I touch my glasses. Her maybe her posture, like when I'm talking, you talk the same way that I talk when I'm moving my hands. Or if you have your hands folded on the table, maybe I'll do that. You have your legs crossed, I'll cross my legs. I'll match what your body is doing because that conveys familiarity. And
Mhm.
so that's a really big piece a lot of people don't think about, but that's a way for people to feel more comfortable with you because they feel like as you're matching them subtly, they begin to get more comfortable with you because you're matching who they are. And that
Yeah.
makes them feel more comfortable and conveys trust in you as a person. And that's a really big piece of nonverbals people don't think about is it conveys trust too.
Yeah. 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 I like that you said that. I know if people, when I'm having a conversation with with someone, if they can't look me in the eye ever when I'm talking or when we're talking together, it's hard for me to trust someone that can't ever look you in the eye. And that's something that I notice about people a lot. If they can't ever look you in the eye. And that's kind of a goal of mine when I'm out and about, even just to catch someone's eye and smile or say hi, or if it's a stranger or whatever, that feels good to have that contact. And if you are seeing people that won't ever look in your eye, that it doesn't feel good. It feels closed off or icky. I don't know how to explain it really, but it feels like they they aren't trustworthy, or it's just a like a cut off feeling. You don't feel like they're engaged at all.
Right. And I'm a person where since I was so shy, I had a really hard time making eye contact with people.
Mm.
And it took me a lot of practice to get comfortable looking people in the eye. And
Yeah.
so, we have that understanding of others that we know that it can be difficult to do that,
Hmm.
but it makes all the difference in the world if you're able to look people in the eye. And plus, that conveys confidence.
Yeah.
So it says, I'm confident in who I am, and I see you.
Yeah.
And those two things are super important when you're communicating, whether, and like you said, you look at people in the eye and you smile at them. I do that too. And I always get a smile back.
Yeah.
People like that I see you, you see me, that very simple. It was a communication, but it was a nonverbal.
Right.
But it's one that everybody understands.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and it does take practice if you're not used to doing that, or if you were really shy or are really shy. It just, once you start doing it though, it feels so good to have that connection with people back and
Mhm.
forth, that it really does boost your confidence and it helps you do it more. So try it out if you are someone that doesn't like to look at people in the eye. Try it out because it will help you come out of your shell a little bit and be more confident in who you are and what you're projecting.
Absolutely. And that brings up another thing is facial expressions.
Yeah.
And both of us have had interesting stories with facial expressions because I used to have a very like flat affect and I didn't want to show emotion, and there was a lot of reasons for that. But I learned very quickly that it's important for me to express on my face what I'm expressing out loud. So one of the most important things is smiling. If you have a smile on your face, even if it's a small one,
Yeah.
people understand that. They know what that feels like. That shows that you're engaged and you're interested and that you're happy to be there.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas like a frown, you're like,
Yeah.
it's not as like engaged as if I have a smile on my face. And it's important to express that. So like with your eyes, with your smile,
Mhm.
to really say, hey, I'm here and I'm engaged. I'm not condescending a-hole.
Right. And some people don't even realize that they have a resting bitch face for lack of
I
any other
certainly
word.
didn't, when I was younger.
Yeah. And some people just naturally, if you have no expression, have a frown on their face. That's just a natural way. So, sometimes you have to start to make an effort to turn that smile or that frown around, right? And turn that frown
Turn that
upside
frown up.
down. Yeah. And make it a smile. And if you catch yourself looking around or looking at something and you catch yourself with a frown, just turn that into a smile, and it'll help you in your mood and help you project a more happy being, instead of, you know, even though you might not feel that inside, but you're projecting that always. So know what you're projecting out to the world and pay attention to that. And it can really help.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It brings up another thought. So you'll notice as Tracy's talking or I'm talking, one of the things that we do a lot is nod.
Yeah.
And that's another way to convey positivity and that you're actively listening to somebody is as they're talking, you're nodding and
Yeah.
you're listening. You're like, yeah, I understand that. It's conveying, you understand, it's conveying agreement, it's conveying interest.
Mhm.
Um, and so that's another thing to be mindful of. Are you shaking your head? Like,
Right.
because that tells me you're confused, you don't understand, or you're like, no.
Yeah.
But if you're nodding, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I understand that. That's
Mhm.
another thing to think about too, especially if you're wanting people to know that you're interested. Something as simple as a smile and nod
Yeah. Yeah.
tells me that you're interested. I'm conveying that I'm interested in what you have to say. So thinking about that too is a really big one. That's easy to do. All of us know how to nod our heads.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I do it a lot.
Yes, I do too. It's just kind of an automatic thing now. Once you practice something enough, it gets so easy and it's just becomes second nature. You don't think about it anymore.
Yeah. And I even catch myself doing it on if I'm watching TV or watching a documentary or something that I'm really interested in.
I
And
do too.
I'll be sitting there and I'll be good. You're like, oh boy, but it's an automatic. You are engaged in that, whatever it is you're watching. So it it just helps you stay more engaged in what you're listening to or what you're talking about. And yeah, it's so good. And it's not a bad habit to have. You you're being actively engaged in your life and in what's going on around you. So do that and allow yourself to be that way, be engaged in your life and what's going on around you and the conversations happening. So yeah,
Right.
so
I
good.
think the last thing I'll mention too, Tracy, I love that we're talking about being engaged because that's really what this is all about is being engaged. But the other thing I want to talk about quickly is well, hands and body posture.
Yeah,
So you'll notice when I'm talking, my hands are apart. They're open.
yeah,
My hands are open or they're doing like little things like this,
yeah,
but I don't have fists.
right.
Right. This conveys something very different than this.
Yeah,
So pay attention to how your hands are. Are your hands sitting on your lap like this? Or are
yeah,
your hands sitting on your lap like this? Or are
yeah,
they gently folded or are you clutching them?
yeah.
Paying attention to what are your hands doing? And then also your body. Your body should convey openness.
Mhm.
Because like we said, like crossing the arms, even if it's a comfortable position for you, conveys that you're closed off, you're not interested.
Right.
So if you have something where you're just like kind of folding your hands down on your lap rather than doing the arm crossing,
Mhm.
you have, like I said, open posture,
Yeah.
you're slightly turned towards somebody. Those are all good, positive things for you to do and help people to know that you're open and interested in talking with them.
Yeah. Yeah. I know my husband always gives me crap about talking with my hands because I'm very animated when I'm explaining something or telling a story and I my hands are always moving. And one time he said, "Can you say that sitting on your hands? Can you explain that without using your hands?" I'm like, no, I can't. I'm sorry. But it's just fun to see people that are really animated when they talk about something. And it's important to show you're enthusiastic
Mhm.
about something, you're engaged, you're in that moment. So yeah.
You're excited, you're passionate about it. And when that comes across to people, that makes them more interested too. They
Yeah.
kind of mirror you. Like, oh, well, she's really excited about it. Maybe that's something I could be excited about. Tell me more.
Yeah. Yeah, and start noticing people like driving in a car if they're on their headset or on their phone, and you'll see hands moving if they're very animated people. It's pretty funny to watch conversations like that. Think, yeah,
Like,
it's so cool. Yeah. Yeah. Another thing about communication is to show empathy and compassion for people when they are talking about something that they are passionate about or they're telling their story or whatever that is. Uh, show that you're interested and being empathetic is a good way to do that. Not that you're taking on any energy of theirs when someone's telling you their story, but you want to be engaged and show them that you care about it and you are a compassionate being, and being empathetic means that you can feel what they're doing, are talking about, but you're still able to tell them, maybe how you could help them, or how, this has helped me, or whatever it is. Just showing that engagement in that conversation is real important, to have that empathy and compassion in a conversation. But
Right. When people know that you care,
right.
that
Yeah.
makes all the difference in the world when you're building a relationship.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. So good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yep. Yeah. And another thing is having resolution with conflict in conversations. You know, right now in our society, that is really prevalent, that, you know, a lot of people are so opposite, or one side against the other, and placing that conflict in everyone. And there's always two sides to any story. And if we can be open enough to hear the other side, and it doesn't mean we have to agree with everything they say, but we can find a common ground in whatever that is. And we can agree to disagree if that's what it takes. But we don't have to all think the same in this world. And how dumb is that, to think that we should be like that? We can all have our own opinions, but it doesn't mean that we can't like each other and can't be friends if we disagree on things. What a boring world it would be if we all had the same exact ideas and the same exact thoughts and beliefs. It would make for some boring conversations, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so much fun, I think, to hear other people's opinions and other people's way of thinking. I just love that, to be able to, because you learn so much about people when you hear their point of view on things. And whether you agree with it or not, it's still fun to hear that side of a conversation.
You know what I really love about that is it would do us really well to remember that each one of us is a unique individual with unique experiences coming from a unique perspective. Whether we are, from the same culture, different parts of the world, doesn't matter. We all are very unique and we all have our own unique thoughts and perspectives. And we're meant to be that way. That's how it is we all have this unique life experience. And so it would do us all more justice if we remember that each of us is a human with a unique perspective, and to allow ourselves to learn from one another and to hear one another out and to be interested in another person, just because it's like, well, whether we agree or disagree doesn't matter, but that conversation that we're going to have about whatever it is that we're agreeing about or disagreeing about, we're each going to learn something. And it might be just about each other and where we're coming from,
Yeah,
because you're coming from that perspective for a reason.
right.
So if we learn that reason, that can help you to understand that person more, and also understand you know how the two of you can connect in a positive way.
Yeah,
And so it's really important to be open-minded and to listen to people and to hear them out, because you might be like, oh, you make a really good point there. Even
right.
if you don't agree with it, maybe they made a good point that has something for you to think about too. Or maybe it even changes your opinion. You didn't know something that they brought up before. Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
It kind of blows my mind. And so it's just good to listen, to be open to listening. Because if you're just open to listening, that opens up the ability for you guys to have a relationship, to
yeah,
have a friendship, to have a business relationship, to have a working relationship, to have more of a relationship with family members. Just be open to listening. And that makes a huge difference in any relationship or conversation or simple communication that you have. It's going to make a huge difference.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so true. Um, Being open minded enough to be able to listen to someone else's point of view is huge with communication. It's so, so important. Right.
Being comfortable with disagreeing with each other.
Yeah.
You know, like you disagree with me, I disagree with you. That's okay. I think it's good that you have your own opinion.
Yeah.
And that I have my own, and I think we can just respect each other from that
Right.
place.
Yeah.
Um, and just keep moving on, because that's not everything that we are. This is one topic,
Right.
right? That's not everything that you are, and that doesn't define you, doesn't define me. So let's move on and find our common ground, right?
Yeah.
Um, I just had a thought. I was at a holistic expo and I was doing readings, and this gentleman came in and came up to my booth and he started asking me questions, and I was talking to him, and um, he was someone who wanted to evangelize. Um, the
Mm.
church that he was with taught him to evangelize and try to convert people and get them to come to church. Well, okay, great. That's not my thing. That's not my bag. I don't like to push my values on other people. I feel like for me, that's the wrong thing to do. I prefer people to come from their own perspectives and we learn from each other.
Mhm.
And so he had come up to me and he was, trying to get me to do this or do that. And um, I what I did was I reflected, okay, this is what I heard you say. And he said, yep. And I said, I understand where you're coming from. I said, but for me, I'm doing what feels right for me, and you're doing what feels right for you. And I completely understand and respect that. But I also ask that you extend that respect to me and allow me to do the things that feel right for me.
Yeah.
And then we can just respect each other. And he's like, yeah, okay. He's like, will you take my card though? I was like, sure, I'll take your card.
Yeah.
You have a wonderful day. He said, you too. And so I didn't try to say you're wrong or I don't agree with you or try to
Right.
argue with him. I just said, you know what, I understand where you're coming from and that this feels right for you. And I'm happy that you're doing what feels good to you. I'm also going to do what feels good to me, even though it's different from what you're wanting.
Yeah.
But I'm going to respect you and you keep doing your thing and I'm going to keep doing my thing. And we can just have that mutual respect. And he was good with that. That made him comfortable. And he was able to move on. And he actually left and, went to do whatever it is that he was going to do that day.
Yeah.
And so it's about making sure that the other person feels heard and respected
Yeah.
and that you can have that two-way street.
Right.
Even if you completely are in different, you
Yeah.
know, completely different
Opposite spectrums of the
opposite.
world.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, like opposite. I like how do I put that? But like completely opposite thinking,
Well,
whereas
and
he was wanting to people to convert to him, and I was like, well, either you agree with me, or you don't. That's cool. I don't care. But
right.
letting him know that I still was respectful of his
Yeah.
thinking, but leave me to be my own self and do my own things.
Right. Yeah. And it doesn't mean you don't believe in some of the things he believes in, but you don't have to be converted. You don't have to be on either side of the fence. You can
Right.
have
And with
opinions.
right, with all human beings, we're gonna have common ground somewhere.
Right.
Because if
Yeah.
you think about it, we're all human. We have that in common. We have a common ground.
Yeah.
And there's more things. Obviously, with each of us, we have things that are in common. And to search those out rather than search out our differences makes
Yeah.
a huge difference in relationship building and creating positive communication as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. We all have this common goal of being happy and being loved and to share that with others. And I think when we keep our core values in mind, we can always come to you know, a common ground area with pretty much anything.
Right. And what's huge is people really just want to be heard.
Yeah.
And so allowing them to know, yes, I hear you. I heard you out. I listened to what you had to say.
Yeah.
And I'm interested in what you have to say because I'm interested in you as a person and I
Hmm.
respect you as a person. that's really where true communication happens.
Yeah. 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 Just knowing that I see you, I hear you, and reciprocating that, getting that back from the other person too. Yeah.
Right.
So good.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mutual respect goes a long way.
Right. For sure. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, some things that we can do, you can set intentions when you're coming into a conversation with someone. How do you want to feel? How do you want them to feel? You know, Setting that intention to be seen and heard, reciprocating that with each other, and just setting those boundaries. If something is too toxic in a conversation, you can say, that doesn't feel good to me right now. You know, can we come to a common ground on that, or whatever it is, or agree to disagree? Set that intention that you're not there in a conversation to hurt someone, to to be bombarded with someone else's opinions. Come to that common ground and set that intention that that is going to happen in the conversation. And it really helps to have that an intention before you go into a conversation, especially if you know it's going to be tough, or if you know that you have a lot of differences before you start out. Just setting those intentions is important.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And it's really about thinking about, what do I want to get out of the conversation, and how do I want to feel? And what do I want the other person to get out of the conversation? How do I want them to feel? Like you
Mhm.
said, just setting that intention of what is this conversation going to be like? So
Right.
then you can create that. You can
Yeah.
bring that into that conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. And making sure that they are understanding where you're coming from, and that you're understanding where they're coming from. So, like we said at the beginning, ask questions, be able to, eh, you know, tell the person, if you don't understand what I'm saying, ask me questions. So it goes both ways always. And just setting those boundaries. If you don't understand, please ask me. If I'm not understanding you, I hope I can ask you. And doing that when you're starting out, especially a hard conversation, or when you're coming from opposite points, or on the spectrum, um having that ability to back off and listen, or step up and explain yourself, is so good.
Absolutely. I feel like, one of the most important pieces of any communication of any kind, whether it's in a worded conversation, whether it's written word, whether it's, over the phone,
Mhm.
or you're just, you know, um, conveying something with a smile, the most important piece to me is to be genuine.
Right. Yeah.
Convey your genuine feelings, convey your genuine opinion, convey who you are genuinely, because people will feel that whether they agree with you or disagree with you. Doesn't matter as much as they like, wow, I really feel you coming from that place of truth for yourself, of being just yourself and just explaining things as you see them. And people feel that. People feel your heart. And
Yeah.
that makes a big difference too. Then, if you're coming from that genuine place, or you're coming from a place of, you have to agree with me,
Right.
those are two very different places.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, exactly. Don't eh, it always goes back for me to, don't assume things. Don't assume that exactly how they're feeling or trying to come across, and always ask if you don't. Another good thing to do is to lighten up a conversation. If it starts feeling too heavy, or like, oh, I don't want to go there, or whatever, you know, you can laugh at yourself if you're trying to be too out of your league, or too um maybe you're feeling that conversation getting too heavy or going the wrong way than you had planned, or whatever it is, add some humor into that, or lighten it up a little bit, and allow yourself to, we don't have to make every conversation hard.
No,
It
absolutely
can be
not.
so much easier. And
My favorite thing to do, Tracy, with humor is, as a conversation is going or starting to lull or repeat itself, I'll
yeah.
do a pattern interrupt is what we would call it, in Best Life, where I bring up like super random question, or or something that I know will make us both laugh,
Right.
or I'll just say something, kind of off the wall. I was like, you know, I was really thinking about XYZ. And they're like, what?
Yeah.
And then it completely changes the conversation. It
Yeah.
takes you out of the loop. It takes you out of the seriousness. Um,
Yeah.
and that really helps you guys to move forward and on from the conversation if you're ready to be done with it.
Yeah.
And it works every single time because I am so good. It's just very natural, and people expect it from me, to just bring up something super random because that's part of who I am. One,
Yeah. Yeah.
but two, it's also a way that I have learned to be able to be like, okay, we're ready to move on now. I'm just gonna move us on.
Yeah. Yeah.
People don't notice it either. They don't. They don't. They're just like, okay, well, we're moving on the conversation.
Yeah. 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 Just, change the subject, go a different way, be awkward,
Mhm.
be random. Yeah. It's a good,
Absolutely.
good thing to do to lighten the mood when it's getting too, when you can feel that tension and you can cut that with a knife in the room. We want to lighten that up, and you want to start asking questions, or like a random question or whatever, even if it's a question about the topic that you're talking about. We want to change that vibe and pivot, like we always talk about, pivot what's going on in the room if it's too uncomfortable for you, and if you want to lighten it up and move it forward. A lot of times it will help to ease that tension and get that mood a lot better, so someone is opening their mind a little more to a topic, or to the conversation that you're having. So
Right.
just that jolt can open things up, and think, oh yeah, I was getting a little too off there, or a little too deep, or whatever. Yeah.
It can be something that's related,
Mm.
completely unrelated, or a tangent.
Yeah.
Any of those things are good, and just a way to move forward.
Yeah. Yeah. So good.
Or a joke. Tell a dad joke
Yeah.
randomly. That'll lighten up the mood.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Let's talk a little bit about social media and communication on there, and the digital era, and how things are right now, or even like texting. There's so many people now, and younger generations than us, me especially, they text everything. And sometimes, especially in generation gaps, it can you can read things into that aren't really there, and we
Mm,
don't mean to do that. So being conscious of that when you're texting, or when you're communicating online, or whatever it is, even an email, or make sure that you're not putting off a vibe, and be in the right vibe when you are texting or typing that information, because your vibe goes into your words that you're putting on the text or the paper or whatever it is. Just be aware of that, right? Is that something that you see more, being a lot younger than I am? Do you see that now, even with people younger than you, or people older. Do you feel that gap in communication there?
Yeah, when you were talking, it made me think about, so in my work, I do a lot of digital communication,
Mhm.
tons.
Yeah,
Emails and text messages and communicate over like Microsoft Teams, like all that kind of stuff.
right.
And what you're talking about makes total sense to me because um it's really important that you convey with your words the vibe that you're wanting to put out. So for me, I'm always wanting to make it a positive communication, let people know that this is an uplifting communication. It's something that's supposed to feel good to you.
Mhm.
So a lot of times they'll start things with "Good morning!" exclamation mark, because that
Yeah,
makes them know that I'm writing in a positive note, rather than just saying, well, "This is what I need from you."
right.
Right?
Yeah,
That's much a different feel than "Good morning. I just want to let you know." Or I
yeah,
could say, "Well, I want to let you know that you're missing this." Or I could say, "Well, good morning. Hey, I just want to let you know that this is another thing that I need from you. Would you be able to get that to me soon?"
yeah,
There's a completely different vibe to the way that feels. I'm asking for the same thing,
yeah.
but I'm saying it in a different way. I'm saying it positively, or I'm just saying it straight out. Now, a lot of people have that struggle with, if they're a very straightforward person.
Mhm.
They just say, "Hey, I need this other paperwork from you. Can you send it to me, please?"
Yeah,
Well, when you're typing that, it sounds like the way I just said it,
right.
right? Like, just, "You're missing this. Can you get this to me now?"
Yeah,
Versus, "Good morning. I noticed that I'm missing this from you. Could you please just get it to me when you have a moment? Appreciate you. Thank you."
yeah,
So it's really about, how do I want to convey that? What words can I use to let you know how I'm feeling? Because for me, that's how I would normally talk to somebody. And so that's how I want to convey it in an email or a text message.
yeah.
One of my friends, she's older. She's a little bit older than you, Tracy, and I work with her. And her daughter told her, "Mom, use more emojis." And it made so much sense because she just says everything just very straightforward. Well, it
Right.
doesn't come across the way that she intends it sometimes,
Yeah,
right? Because she's, older, and like she started texting in her 50s, you know what I mean?
yeah,
And so
yeah,
it's much different to her, 'cause she's like, "Well, I'm just telling you what I said. You know me, you should know how I would say it." That's
right.
not really the case. So her daughter's like, "Use more emojis, Mom, so I know in what way you're conveying this, because the way that you say it is just so very deadpan and I can't tell."
Yeah,
So she's using more emojis. So it's kind of like that. So I use word emojis
yeah,
where I convey a feeling with words, because I'm a writer. I love to write. It's something that I'm good at. But
yeah,
for her, she just, she writes it very straightforward. And so she needs those actual emojis to say how she's intending the message to go to her daughter. That's text message. And with emails, she has me read them first. So she's like, "Does this come off the way that I want it to?"
yeah,
So we work together. Like, I have her read mine, and and I read hers. So we work with each other that way, to
mhm.
say, "Okay, is this how we really intended it? Does it make sense?" And so bouncing your ideas off somebody else can really help you with your digital communication as well. Having somebody
Yeah,
else read it, how does it come off to them? Oh, that's like, makes all the difference in the world.
right.
All the difference in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, emojis are a huge thing for me. I, and when I have somebody that texts without any emojis, it's hard to read that. It's hard to, especially my age, I need that emoji to get that emotion because I am very visual, emotional, I I want to feel that. And that's how I communicate more, is with feeling instead of just the words. So I use emojis a lot when I text, or even on social media posts and stuff like that. I always put an emoji with whatever I say, because that's just, my dorky way of doing things. But it really does help to communicate your emotion with that, whatever you're saying.
Right. And it's just like your face. Like we
Yeah,
talked about earlier, your nonverbals. There aren't any nonverbal cues in a text message
Yeah.
or in an email. And
Yeah.
so you need to convey that in a way that makes sense for them to where they'll still get that emotion. And that's where that kind of stuff comes in. Use those words or
Yeah.
the way that you say them as your nonverbals or those emojis as your nonverbals.
Yeah.
Otherwise, people will read into it, just like your face, if it's blank, they'll read into it how they think it's coming across or how they're feeling in the moment. So if they're not feeling very good in the moment, they're not feeling confident, and you send them a text message with no context,
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
going to see it as negative. And
Yeah.
so you need to think about that. Make sure it's conveying the emotion that you want them to have when they read it.
Right. And it doesn't mean, put 3 lines of emojis after a sentence,
It's a
but
little
at
narcissistic,
least, yeah, yeah. And if there aren't any, try not to read into that. Try not to um, just think the worst or think, put a negative vibe on it when it really isn't a negative statement at all. Don't assume anything in
right?
in
Except,
communication.
I would say, when worst comes to worst, assume positive intent.
Right.
You will
Yeah.
do well to assume that there's a positive intent from that person.
Yeah.
And that will help you a lot too in your communications. Because if you're assuming negative intent, well, that's everything's going to seem negative to you. But
Yeah.
if you're like, I'm not really sure how they meant that, okay, well, if they were saying it to my face and we were having a good conversation, I would assume that positive intention behind those words. So that's what I'm going to do for this person that I
Yeah.
know and love is I'm going to assume that they have a positive intention behind that. And if I'm not sure what they mean, I'm going to give them a call.
Yeah.
I have a phone. It's literally on my phone. Why don't I just call them?
Yeah. Exactly.
All
Yeah.
of the misunderstandings.
Right. Or ask, text them back. Hey, did you mean this? Or, whatever it
I was
is. Yeah.
confused by that. What did you mean?
Yeah. It's a lot easier to just call them. Press that
Ask for
button.
clarity,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because if you call
So,
them and they're laughing, it was probably a joke.
right.
Or they were like, oh, I just wanted to tell you about this. Or, I just wanted to tell you in a certain way that I love you. I don't know. Phone
Yeah.
calls are useful. For the younger generation, they're not used to that, but it's like, dude, if you can talk to another person, that's going to help you your entire life through. Get
Right.
used to it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so important to try and communicate a little better. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with showing your emotions and feelings and being able to communicate back and forth that way and call if you need clarity. And another thing is in social media, take everything with a grain of salt, right? um so many people out there are only telling half truths, or they're so many different fake things out there. Take it with a grain of salt and know who you are reading, what they're talking about, and know that it could all be fake. Don't ever take everything for granted that it's 100% real out there, especially nowadays. There's so many things that they fake on videos and on whatever it is. There's always good and bad with everything that comes out. So take things with a grain of salt unless you know for sure that it's real and that you are receiving that communication in the right way. And you know don't believe everything you see or hear, whatever. you could be misinterpreting everything, and just know that it goes both ways. If the way you're interpreting things could be way different than someone else is. So be gentle on yourself if you're misunderstanding something, and be gentle with others that are just maybe doing their job or doing something that they thought they had to do, whatever that is. um be gentle with society and with everything, yourself and people you communicate with.
Be kind, be gentle,
Yeah.
Check your facts.
Right. There's always a fact checker out there. Yeah. Yeah. And nowadays, with like Facebook, people get hacked and they put things out there that aren't real, that look real. And just know that there can always be that chance that things aren't as they seem. So um check your facts. Yeah. Don't don't fall into those scammers and whatever it is, but always communicate and always ask questions and always, you can always ask and someone will reveal what the truth is. So if all else fails, go to the source.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Especially like, let's say somebody's phone gets hacked and they send you a text message with a link in it that they wouldn't normally do.
Right.
Give them a call. That's where
Yeah.
phone calls are, like person to person communication really is the best. And that's one of the reasons we want to kind of share with you guys our tips on positive communication, tips on helping you to communicate better with others,
Yeah.
and to make your conversations more positive and more productive, and to help you to get along better in the world with others, because we're all in this together.
Right. Yeah. We all have the same end goal, I think, is to be happier and um, be loved and be love and, you know, get along and have a great life. So we're we're in this together for sure.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And
Well, Tracy, I feel like
any last words?
kind of shared everything that we had
Yeah.
intended for
Yeah.
today. So,
I think it
Tracy,
was great. Great
awesome.
conversation. Yeah. Great
But if,
communication.
if
All
people
right.
were looking to communicate with you more,
Yes,
where can they find you?
I have my website is called inspiredsignals.com and you can find my links to everything right there. I also did start a YouTube channel now. I don't know if I said that before, but it's Inspired Signals or at Inspired Signals. And I have uploaded a few of my videos from lives that I used to do, and I'll be starting some new ones soon. So you can check those coaching videos out on my channel. And Carissa, where can we find you?
So you can find me on Facebook at Light of Hope Healing. Obviously, you can find me here on YouTube, or wherever you're getting this podcast from. And then we are also collectively on Facebook at Our SoulSpace as well. And then I have a Square site, which is light-of-hope-healing.square.site. So it's Light of Hope Healing with dashes in between .square.site. So check that out. I have some really fun stuff on that as well.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, we will see you next week. I hope you're having an awesome summer so far. Well, it's not actually real summer yet, but feels like summer.
Feels like summer.
Yeah. So, anyway, have a great rest of your week and we'll talk to you again soon. Bye bye.
Bye, guys.